Greetings, greetings, peace and blessings. We are going to discuss and do some analyzing and reacting to some of the voices that we have from our women that are speaking out, that are being vocal, and that are being assertive in saying that we are not in this election voting for identity politics, and we're not voting through emotion. We will be very cognizant of voting for policies and voting for change and voting for our pockets. Without further ado, for those that are watching for the first time, welcome to any new subscribers. If you have not subscribed currently, please tap that subscribe button and click on your all notifications bell so you get notified when I release new material. We're going to go right off into the first clip of a woman that is responding to the debate that Kamala and Trump had, and this is what she had to say.
Part of her tactic tonight.
Part of Kamala's tactic?
Yes, Kamala's tactic.
Okay. What in particular would you remember about that?
Especially when she brought up the Central Park Five. I think that's a hot button issue, especially for a lot of African Americans, but she leaves out a lot of specifics to that. Like the lead prosecutor was a Democrat at the time. Back then, Donald Trump was also a Democrat. He wasn't always a Republican, and he was praised heavily in a good way for taking out that ad in the paper because a lot of people did think that they were guilty. So a lot of people that were against Trump now were once a big fan of his, and I think he was gaslit during the entire debate, and that was probably why he was so defensive. And even when he brought up the topic of race, he brought that up because she's pandering. She's using being black as a trope to get the black vote. But instead of her leaning into it, I would have liked to see her lean into the fact that, yes, I am a black woman, and this is my plan for Black America, but she clearly doesn't have a plan because she's essentially not black. But she used that as a moment to paint him as a...
So there is actually a lot to dissect here. The first thing that I want to respond to when she stated that she didn't answer the question. She never does answer questions directly. She filibusters and she speaks all around the topic, which leads us into the next video. But prior to going to that, during that debate, if you speak on, there were so many different topics. This is not a review on the debate per se. However, I do want to take note and to mention that she never directly answered any questions in that debate head on. She tap danced all around it. She talked about when some questions were asked, she totally went off topic as if people were not going to be aware that that's what she was doing, and that she at the end did not and would not answer any questions that were given to her directly, which in my opinion is a very large indication that she really just doesn't have anything to offer of value, and especially enough to say it out loud without it being disputed, decanted, where she would have to recant the statement in the end. It probably in her mind would have hurt her more than help her, though the entire country that has an open mind and eyes to see with ears to hear have seen in any interview, which have been minimal, by the way, any minimal answers, any type of responses in her interviews, and she never directly heads on and hits the question head on with an answer and a direct response. And this is a great example. She can say it definitely better than I can.
Do you plan to take to administer reparations for this unpaid labor?
Right. So I'm actually supporting a bill.
I want to go back and I want to catch the question in its entirety so we will be able to at least understand clearly what is being asked. And therefore, when she does not respond or based off of Kamala's response, it just doesn't answer the question.
What specific actions do you plan to take to administer reparations for this unpaid labor?
Right.
She was very, very clear. What specific actions do you plan to take as far as reparations for all of this unpaid labor? Ooh, that was so eloquently put. Now let's see what good old Kamala, depending on what accent she's using today, had to say.
So I'm actually supporting a bill. There's a congresswoman by the name of Sheila Jackson Lee that has written this bill out of the House, which I'm supporting to study exactly what should be the response to your question.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit?
I just cannot. Is she insulting our intelligence or is she lacking in intelligence? Maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm not really sure. But what she said, because words matter, is that she was supporting a study on how to answer that question from a congresswoman that she named. None of those words answered the question. None of them touched on reparations. None of them touched on unpaid labor. And none of what she said was specific. Let's continue.
But to your point, and to just support your point, look, we had centuries of slavery in this country. We had decades of Jim Crow. We had legalized discrimination and segregation. And then we had de facto discrimination and segregation. And to believe or suggest that those years of treatment and abuse and violence and crimes did not have an impact is to overlook the facts of history. And for that reason, I support the legislation and what we need to do to think about specifically what it means in terms of the next steps.
Ooh-wee, if gaslighting was ever a term and filibustering was ever a term, she fit both of that criteria in this crazy answer, which she never responded. We did not ask for a history lesson on how that question even became to be possible to be asked. She asked, what specifically do you have planned regarding reparations in all of the unpaid labor for those that have built this country? How will there be restitution? What do you have planned specifically? And she instead gave us a bunch of mumbo jumbo and a history lesson, which she never gets fact checked on, however, at least from her side. But she never answered the question. And personally, I have an issue with giving someone my vote of running an entire country, or at least the appearance of doing so, being elected to do so, and you won't even answer direct questions. You won't even answer a direct question because you done already told us basically that you're not going to specifically do anything for Black people. Not specifically. So the young lady, I'm not sure if she's aware of that clip, but that question was answered prior to her actually being elected as vice president for the 2020 election process. We're going to segue into another video of another sister that had something to say about voting for who she felt was best qualified in position to be elected the next president of the United States. And this is what she had to say.
A little platform, I'm gonna go ahead and use it because a lot of people seem to be misinformed. Kamala Harris is not the better option. Don't be fooled just because she is a woman and she is of color. She is not for the people. And me being from the Bay Area and being around when she was actually running the district attorney's office, let me help you understand what I mean by that. And before I have gazillion people hopping in the comments, talking mess regarding Trump and all that, listen, between him and her, all you're doing is picking one of the lesser evils. And
facts. Those are facts. Let's not get it twisted. My personal assessment and belief of the election process is that presidents are selected and not elected. That's a whole nother live stream. I am actually covering this topic simply because at this point, we definitely only have two choices, and we need to, at least if we're going to participate, which that is a personal choice and a personal option that we either choose to exercise or not, but in my opinion, it's no one else's business. Point being though, if you choose to vote, you're going to need to look at what is being offered in regards to policy and not looking at who we like because of maybe the skin color, the background, the culture. We need to look at what is going to benefit me and my family at the end of the day, and who is suited best and who is stating that these are policies and steps that they are willing and committed to implementing in order to achieve that goal. At this point, we've already had one Black president, at least that's what has been claimed, in office. And all I have to ask is, where are we today compared to then? And how did it really benefit us? And did it really benefit us?
that's facts. But being that I am a part of the community of families that are affected by incarcerated people, I am going to go with the person who is less inclined to locking everybody up. And yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying that they don't know if that's correct. And I seen Yandy make a post saying that a lot of that is just propaganda. Well, let me help break it down for you. Kamala Harris grew up in the Berkeley, Oakland area. She went to law school at Hastings and graduated there and started off as a district attorney in Oakland. From Oakland, she went to Alameda before she went to San Francisco. Do y'all remember in 2010 there was that big drug lab scandal with Deborah Madden and the San Francisco Police Department? I remember specifically because I had 2 cases involved in that scandal. Let me help fill you in. She was the head district attorney at the time, and right under her was a guy named Gascon, something like that. He used to be a district attorney in Los Angeles when they had that big old scandal going on with a bunch of police misconduct. Anyhow, around that time, he was reviewing police files for misconduct, and he was basically telling her that there's no policy in place and there needs to be one for any time there's police misconduct. It needs to be reported to the lawyers and the judges on the case. She ignored him. Now, after she ignores his advice that there needs to be policies in place, that way they can curb any type of misconduct that's going on in these cases, it comes out that there's this big drug scandal in the drug labs. Deborah Madden, she was the lead technician in the drug labs, and it had been reported several times to their office that this woman had an issue and that she shouldn't be testifying in anybody's cases. She was touching the drugs, she was stealing the drugs, she was sneaking the drugs. It was just a bunch of bullshit. All of that was hidden from the attorneys and the judges on the cases.
That was done because, as she just stated, when Kamala became DA, she ignored the requests and the pleas that there needs to be language put into the laws that if there is corruption within the law enforcement agencies that they need to be held accountable. There needs to be a record. There needs to be a log. There needs to be a paper trail, a history established that can be proven, that can be substantiated and brought to the forefront. So as when cases come to court, you don't have crooked people sending other people that are in trial unjustly to prison.
Do you know how it came out? It came out because Deborah Madden's family finally took it to the news. And once it became public, then Kamala Harris tried to say that she didn't know anything about it. Yes, you did. Now, keep in mind, Deborah Madden's family also reported that they had already been contacting the district attorney's office for months prior to this, before coming to the news channel, to let them know that there was misconduct going on, and they were also concerned about their family member, all of which got ignored. Now, keep in mind, she was head district attorney at the time. So how are you running an entire department and you claim to not know what's going on in your office, although that was later proven to be bullshit and that she was aware, and her colleagues gave her up on that. But she just chose to withhold the information from the judges and the attorneys on those cases. And what was her reasoning behind that? She wanted to keep as many people locked up as she could, no matter if that case was mishandled, if there was misconduct to get that conviction or not. And she knew that if that misconduct got out, that was grounds for dismissal.
And this is who people are saying they're going to vote for in order to run not one state, but all of the states that create this conglomerate of the United States of America. Houseway, I'm just asking, what kind of sense does that make?
And let's talk about Kevin Cooper. Do y'all remember him? That's the man that was hours away from his execution, and DNA had now became a thing, and his lawyers asked for the execution to be stopped and his DNA to be tested so it could possibly prove his innocence. She denied it and didn't want it to happen. However, Governor Newsom stepped up and said, no, let's go ahead and test his DNA. And come to find out, I'll be damned, it was not a match.
Shout out.
Wait, let's not forget when she actually made it a crime and parents started getting charged with their children being truant. But when they ran the numbers, they realized that this mostly affected Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, African Americans, children with disabilities, and foster children.
And I don't hear Asian in any of those groups. I'm just saying.
And then she later tried to say it was an unintended consequence when she realized that parents were actually getting arrested for this. It was up to a $2,000 fine, up to a maximum of a year in county jail, and people were losing their welfare benefits because their children were truant from school.
How in the world could that be an unintended consequence when you were the ones that you were directly in position to ignore, to change, or to basically back the laws that you have helped put into place, or that you at the very least voted on or had a final say of? How? I'm just not understanding how you cannot know when you have to actively participate in whether these things come to pass, these laws, these bills in this legislature or not. That's not logical. So now you're coming off as a liar.
Intended consequence. And those were her exact words. Like, what do you mean? You're the one that put this in place. And then when you were confronted with it after people were outraged that parents were actually being arrested for this, now you want to back up and say, oh, it was an unintended consequence. Well, what the hell did you think it was going to be? A scare tactic? And I know y'all already heard this one, but I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it. What was it, about 1,900 people that were arrested for smoking marijuana? Not selling, smoking marijuana. Like, get out of here. You're doing everything that you can to just lock people up and ruin their lives. So yeah, while I'm not a fan of this whole political shit, and like I said, in my opinion, it's just picking one of the two lesser evils, Kamala Harris definitely ain't the one I'm going to pick.
Boom shakalaka. Listen, the writing is on the wall. People are vocalizing and they're saying, particularly Black women are saying, just because you claim you're Black, though your lineage says totally different, and just because the hue of your skin color may give off that impression, initially, we're looking at lineage here. We're looking at the bloodline. We are looking at where were you raised, who were you raised by generationally. What do you believe in? What do you claim yourself as? And there are many videos and sources of information floating around the internet where she was actually in the kitchen with a fellow Indian woman that was ecstatic that they had so much in common. And Kamala did nothing but agree with her the whole time. Yeah, yes, 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 yes. Let's go on to the next video.
I have a message to the Democrat Party and to Kamala Harris.
Message, listen up.
And this is a message from real Black women. We were freed on January 1st of 1863. Therefore, you're not going to control us. You're not going to bully us into voting for whomever you select for your own personal gain. We're not going to do what you say because we're afraid of you. Those days are over. But I also wanted to specifically address what you're doing with Kamala Harris. First of all, most of us do not care what her race is. You could have promoted her as just a good candidate, but the fact that you're promoting her as the Black woman candidate, that makes people that are intelligent, that makes us pause and say, okay, so what? She's the Black female. Tell me something about what she's going to do for my community, for my family, and for my country.
Boom. Policy, policy. What are you going to do with your 4 years in office? That's a long time, considering when her and Biden, Kamala and Biden went into office within the first week, Asians had an Asian hate crime bill. Now that was first week, and that's being generous, first weekend. And we're talking about another 3.5 years. We've got unvetted borders, immigrant borders. We've got cartels and gangs that have planted their feet into this country. Crime is out of control. People are struggling. You have people on fixed incomes that they have to choose between gas and groceries. And even if they don't have a vehicle, they have to still, a lot of them choose between what types of groceries. Can I get the eggs today? But I'm going to have to leave the milk. I'm not going to be able to afford bread at $5 a loaf. Fruits and vegetables are tasting like plastic, and those prices have gone through the roof. Not to mention, we can't even consider our health. Food is wealth. We can't sustain our bodies and maintain health through adequate sustenance and food, but we want to elect you and we want to vote for you. Why? You've been in office 3.5 years, almost close to 4 years, and the very things that you're drudging up and from the dirt at the last minute, saying that these are policies you will implement, very little of them sound original or of your own. Why haven't they been implemented up until now? Why do we have to vote you in as president in order to see those changes that you claim you're making, which in my opinion, she really hasn't made any promises. She's talked around the issues and she's given so much word salad that I don't even listen to what she's saying between that and that cackling laugh she's got going on. Listen, it's no secret. I'm going off of behavior. I'm going off of the historic and the lack of historic results that we have received as a country. And I'm looking at the current state of our country, and you insult most of our intelligence levels by saying that you should be voted in as president. I'm confused, but let's continue.
If you can't do that, then you've made a great mistake. You have lost half of us who are intelligent enough to know that the president of the United States must be able to sit across a table from Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, from whomever the new prime minister is or president of Iran, and from Yi from China. You have to have those qualities. Therefore, you cannot be afraid to have an interview before a favorable news network like NBC, CBS, CNN, ABC, and all of the rest of them. If you are afraid to have an interview, my major concern is what is Putin going to do with you or to you and to the United States? Those are the things that are important to us. Then let's go down the line. Again, if you are a real presidential candidate, we want to know about issues, policies that will affect us, things that you messed up in the last 3.5 years. We want to know today. You have 2 months. Today, how are you going to fix the prices of food in grocery stores? I don't like using the term inflation because most people don't even know what that means. But you know what? Everybody knows what it means, how expensive eggs are. That, you know, she was making these comments about using hot sauce, how expensive. Louisiana hot sauce, I can't afford to buy it anymore because it's gone up. It's like tripled in price or something. It's crazy. Those are the things that we're interested in. We also want to know illegal immigration, what you have done to the border, and why have you done it to the border? You were the border czar, but now we see an influx of illegal immigrants. Military-age men. We see what is going on in Colorado. We know that the prisons in Venezuela were emptied and they were told to go to the United States. We see what that has done to our cities. And we want.
And she still has those borders open while she is cackling her way through and filibustering through interviews as if she actually has some value or some substance to bring to that office if she is elected. This is why I feel and believe that presidents are selected. As I've stated before in previous content, and I believe that in the past, there have been presidents that are known to not tell the truth, to assure certain policies and legislation will be entered during their term as president. And then when they get into office, they don't do it. So now you have been deemed as dishonest. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but we are at an electoral process where there have been no assurances, no policies provided, and not even an effort put toward trying to fool somebody that you will actually benefit them by being in office for the next 4 years. To me, the writing is on the wall and it can't get any clearer than that, because if you really were elected and you were looking for favor from your voters, you would do and say what was necessary to get into that office, unless it's not up to us. But I digress. Let's continue.
We want to know, why did you let that happen? We want to know what's happened with child trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking on the border when everybody has free reign. Those are the issues that are important to American black women, okay? Real black women who are free, who do not care what race you are. They could have put you out here and never said anything about race. But if you told me, yes, we've made mistakes in the last 3.5 years, but I promise you in the next month, we're going to get the price of eggs down. Next month, we're going to stop illegal immigration before the election.
And we have gotten none of those assurances, not a one that she has mentioned thus far, particularly the two major ones that she's touching on when it comes to inflation. And now, ironically, the only thing that I've seen go down somewhat in price, and that is just right on schedule, in my opinion, is the gas. Every single solitary election election time, the gas goes down a couple of months before election day, right? Now, I've been through quite a few presidencies and they all operate the same. But why has gas been high for the past 3 years? Now you want to give us a 3 or 4 month reprieve? And then she touched on the immigration. You're talking about completely open borders to the point where you go toe to toe and you have friction with certain governors of certain states that harbor sanctuary cities where there are ports of entry for the illegals to come through. And you want to pick and be petty and have battles with them because they are not freely keeping their borders open without some type of due process or vetting process for them to come through those borders. What is really going on? So those two topics alone, you don't even talk about. We're not going to even touch on. You'll start talking about your family and your college education and things that none of us care about, that doesn't affect our everyday life in no way, shape, fashion, or form. And we're just supposed to go with that because the hue of your skin and you are part of a sorority, and anybody that is connected to you in those ways should automatically give you their vote. Not today, and not amongst many of us.
Show us what you can do before the election comes. Let me see what you have. It's like, okay, don't just talk your talk. You better walk your walk. Do it right now while you're the vice president. Therefore, some of us can follow you. And the other thing, all of the efforts that you're making, that the Democrat Party is making to make you pretend to be a black woman, they're insulting. The fact that you have to change your diction when you go from place to place, insulting. I've spoken, I don't know where, how many different places. It never has occurred to me to speak differently before different crowds of people. Now, if you're intelligent, you're going to speak intelligently. I don't care where you're speaking. And to assume that you have to talk down to black people is insulting to all black people. You don't have to talk down to us. You don't have to get somebody on stage dancing and twerking to relate to us. Grown people, you can talk to us like grown people. And you know what? It doesn't matter what race. We don't care. But I just wanted to say this to the Democrat Party. You've made mistakes with this candidate. And I want you to know that the black women of America, those of us who are free, we recognize your mistakes.
Hello, my divine brothers and sisters. And my sorors. And to all my HBCU brothers and sisters. You can preach like that. Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart.
They say they're not like us. Do I see people testifying? Can I get a witness?
So what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
So we're both Indian.
Yes.
But actually we're both South Indian.
Yeah. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
So those are just some examples of the different accents depending on the audience that she is catering and talking to and all of that good stuff. So let's move along because this next one is one of my favorites, and very few, if any, can deliver it the way that she does. And she really doesn't need an intro, but she's going to tell us exactly what she thinks about this electoral process and the candidates that are running.
With video after video of people criticizing Kamala Harris, accusing her of not being for black people, right? And the question I have is that, like, Why do so many people still believe because a person has black skin, they're for black people?
You know, for the life of me, I can't get this. This is like, Obama all over again. And I'll be honest, I think the reason is because we're emotional, right?
Facts. Facts. That part. We are emotional and we make decisions. And I'm speaking, some of us collectively make decisions from an illogical place, from an emotional space. It's about who we like. It's about who we don't like, as opposed to what is going to benefit us in the long run. What is going to benefit our children?
Right? We're not fact based. We're more based off of emotion. We're in a day and age where people are more concerned about the racism that they're never going to be able to rid, right, than they are about the pedophilia that's sleeping itself through our government, right?
Let's talk about that for a second, okay? Because now all of a sudden that's not even a talking point. I guess because we got the vice president stepping up into the presidential role, and this doesn't necessarily apply to her particularly, but under the administration that she has been present and has served under, there has been such an influx and such a rise in this pedophilia, in the perversion of this country, the things that are being allowed, the fact that our children are being targeted in the schools with literature that can be checked out of their libraries or can be purchased at their book fairs with explicit and inappropriate material that young minds to the age groups that is being targeted can't even wrap their heads around, much less process and absorb the material that is such of explicit nature in these publications. Nobody's talking about our children. What is really important? We can't feed our children. We can't afford to go take our children to childcare or after school programs. Resources have been depleted or minimalized or reallocated to different groups of people. Our children are suffering more than anybody is suffering, but we're worried about identity politics. We're concerned about accents and laughs and not answering direct questions that truly affect our everyday lives. Come on, Angie, speak.
Right, that's an issue for me. And I think that when you ask people what type of policy is Kamala Harris running on, they can't say anything. The only reason they want to vote for her is because she's black. And then what gets me is you're telling me that I'm supposed to choose this woman just because she's black. Well, everybody's pro-black until it's time to marry and procreate, right? She didn't choose black when it was time for her to preserve the black family, but I'm supposed to believe that I'm supposed to choose black for her to preserve the black family in the White House. We're not doing that.
What did he say? What did he say?
Woo-wee. I don't need to repeat that or reiterate what she said. She said what she said.
She didn't have to choose black, then we don't have to choose black either. So we need to get off of this whole thing. Oh, they're just going to do something for us because they're black. Well, maybe if she would have picked a black man or had a black kid, I probably could support that. But the fact that you are on an HBCU tour telling young black women to abort their children while you're raising white children, that's the issue for me.
Mic drop. I am here to tell you, mic drop. Woo! Listen, Angie brought the heat. All she did was state facts. She didn't say anything that was untrue. Nothing did she say. And like she said, you are on an HBCU tour. Now you become visible to the Black voters. Now you are under the guise and appearance as if you are approachable and can be asked questions. And when you're asked said questions, you do everything but answer those said questions. And then you marry outside of your race, but then at your rallies, you have unalive clinics set up outside the front doors of the convention centers, made available for free, which is my understanding that these same young Black women that you are talking to can kill their young Black babies. We're going to go on to our next video. This young lady is the same young lady that went viral for having the food truck, and she put it up for sale. She paid cash money for it. No banks would give her a small business loan, so she had to pull herself up by her bootstraps, get it out the mud, and make it happen for herself. And when she decided to sell the truck, the buyer, the potential buyer at the time that became the buyer, brought her paperwork stating that the government was going to purchase it on the behalf of this immigrant from her to give them a leg up. They're not having to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, I'm sure that has been an eye-opener for her to the point where she's got something else to say.
To the Democrat Party, enough is enough. I'm a single mother who has been self-employed since I was 24 years old. Long time. Over the years, I have volunteered my time to campaigning, volunteering at the polls, inaugurations, even froze my ass off at the inauguration, but I was there to support. It's important to me to show my kids on how we can make a difference. My daughter and other little girls need to know one day they can be president. The last 3 years was tough for me. Imagine what it was like trying to keep a business together after COVID. It wasn't easy, but I made it work. Imagine being a food vendor and having events every weekend. You go out bright and early to set up your tent, make sure the food is nice and hot and you pass your health inspection, standing hours. And when the day is over, making sure you clean up and shut down. Just to imagine the pain that you go through for standing on your toes for so many hours the next day. What kept me going all that time was knowing that what I was doing was going to achieve my goal of getting my food truck. When I got my food truck, man, that was a happy day. I got my food truck ready for the road. Probably a week before my first event, I got the news of the shutdown. It wasn't a simple process to get my food truck back up and running because the events that I used to have almost every week took almost 2 years to get them back up and running to allow people like me to do the events.
So many people that had small businesses during COVID were greatly affected. It was the larger corporations that were able to weather that storm. But the mom and pop shops, the small businesses, and there was actually an entire program, a PPP program under the Trump administration that provided some relief for those current small business owners, and in a lot of cases was able to propel people to become small business owners. And that was an extremely tough time to do so. So a lot of the established businesses that were small prior to COVID took the hit amongst the hardest. And this is her experience.
While my food truck sat there almost 2 years, keeping in mind the maintenance I need to put on my sitting food truck, keeping in mind the $400 a month I had to pay in commercial insurance.
Wow. So her business sat not bringing in any revenue, but she still has those monthly expenses. And she just named one, and that was her commercial insurance, $400 a month. That's a lot of money when you don't have any revenue coming in to be able to buffer that and take care of that expense. So let's hear about what she had to go through as a result of her food truck sitting during COVID because businesses got shut down and most of them could not bounce back.
That took a big hit on my business. I decided to choose to go back into the job market temporarily so that I can still maintain my business. Job market was a nightmare. I'm a person who has years of experience. I have degrees. Entry-level jobs require you to have more than 2 years experience. Entry level. I even found a job that was offering $13 an hour, wanted you to complete a test and to go through 2 interview process just to get the position.
Imagine going from having your own business and owning your own business, being in control of your revenue, to having to jump through hoops for entry-level jobs. So she's taking a pay cut. She's having to go work for someone else. Now she's back on someone else's schedule. There is a lot of demand at you owning your own business. However, there are some freedoms of owning your own business that you just do not get when you are punching someone else's time clock.
I had no choice but to decide to go back to school and get the certifications I needed to get a job that was paying what I needed to pay so I can continue my journey.
So she had to go back and get certifications and continuing education just in order to become competitive with her income so she could get back on track from when she had her small business operating and she was actually able to collect revenue.
Even with the challenges I was facing, I made sure my daughter knew the importance of giving back. We made it our priority to go out and help the homeless. I was recently at the store and there was an elderly lady in front of me and she was paying for her groceries and I watched her have to put back milk, eggs, bread, and some potatoes.
That's everything. I wish she would have stated what she actually had left that she was able to afford. You can make a meal out of those things, and she couldn't afford those things. That sounds like an entire grocery list.
And I quietly took the cashier to the side and I asked her, is she unable to pay for her items? The cashier says, yeah, I think so. I then told her, don't worry about it, I'll pay for them. The lady was so surprised and happy and told me what she was going through and said she's on a budget and things are getting so expensive that she can't even pay for her the things that she needs to survive. I have incurred more expenses for my daughter's public school on having lack of teachers, lack of educational tools, not even giving children the basic educational needs.
And I want to attest to that from my own personal experience. I have a son that is graduating high school here soon, and he plays sports. And in a summer's time, within a 6-week period this past summer, it was almost $1,000 out of pocket expenses. And you have the football organization of the school that he plays for still asking for more monies for fundraisers because they don't have any support from anything within the school budget outside of it doesn't even supply them with decent grade uniforms without the parents and the support of the community and the parent participation. So we're just talking about one sport, supplies, having to arm and equip our children with supplies, not just for them at the beginning of the school year, but for other disenfranchised children that their parents are unable, maybe their parents have multiple children, they're just in a financial situation where they can't afford it. And now with inflation, even school supplies have gone through the roof as far as prices. So where it might have been a challenge for the parents to, like I said, purchase those items before, may not be able to, even more so now. And so we're just definitely having to supplement in our children's education on all fronts. We have a shortage of teachers because they're not getting paid their just due and what their value calls for and what they contribute to our children. If you can, homeschool your children. My son he plays sports for his own school, but he doesn't go to that school. So, we have to be really, really careful about, because most of these institutions are indoctrination centers in order to get you to learn how to work for other people. And that's just one avenue, in my opinion, that is a disadvantage of our children, utilizing the public school system. Used to be all we had to do was send our kids to school. Now we got to send our kids to school. A lot of public transportation is not made available. We got to make sure they get back and forth to school. That they don't get if they offer lunch programs, they don't offer them edible food. So my son has never eaten any of the public school food. He's always had food to take from home. Everybody may not be as fortunate, or able to do so, but she is absolutely right. I didn't mean to be long-winded, but when it comes to these kids, we have got to touch on these subjects and discuss these things because this is real life.
Have you ever went into a corner and cried quietly because you didn't know what next week or maybe next month would look like? Vice President Harris wants to relate with us so much. It's not enough that you make different accents depending on who you're surrounded by. It's not enough that you have booty shaking entertainment. It's not enough with the social media. Then I woke up this morning and I seen this on my For You page.
I gotta put it on mute, y'all. Hold on. Okay, so that's a whole dude. Okay, never mind. Dancing to a Beyonce song.
Disgrace. Your agenda is clearly not for the people. Don't come to my page and making ridiculous comments.
Okay, so, there are endless accounts of women coming to the social media platforms to give their thoughts, their opinions, their testimonies, and their frustrations on the current state of what we are enduring from all different sides, from education to financial. The rabbit hole goes deep, all the way down to just being able to afford basic necessities. People being homeless, disenfranchised, our vets are not taken care of. We have a severe illegal immigration problem. Crime is going through the roof. There's just so many different things that are taking place that we have to think from a logical standpoint. I am not here to tell anyone how to vote, who to vote for, or if to vote at all. That is a personal choice. What I am saying is that whatever you decide to do, give it some thought from the right part of the brain, the correct part of the brain. Think about your family, your current circumstances, your circumstances that you were in 4 years ago to now. Has it disintegrated? Has it improved? Has it stayed the same? And if nothing else, peep game. Peep game, keep your eyes open, your ears perked up, and do what's right for you and your family. I just wanted to bring a couple of women and their opinions as to why they're going to make the decisions that they're going to make. I appreciate your time, and I will see y'all on the next video. Peace.